All right, everybody, we are back this week for UFC Fight Night Paris, Imavov versus Borralho in the UFC, taking place in Paris, France, at the Accor Arena. I'm going to be honest, guys, this is going to be a shorter breakdown. It's not going to be an hour long. I'm going to try to keep this under 30 minutes. I'm going to go through all the fights on the card. Some fights will only be a couple minutes. Some fights, obviously, we'll get more into. Last night on the Contender Series, we went 3-2. Obviously, Antoine Ho was a risky pick. I went with the numerical value of people who compete on the Contender Series for the second time, winning at almost a 90% rate, and he basically got knocked out with an illegal knee in the first round. So, yeah, I feel like that heavily impacted the fight. Not to say that I don't think Chopolin could have won. I definitely think he had the chance to win. Just go back and listen to my breakdown. I'm surprised there wasn't a KO and it ended up going to a decision. We did have McMillan. Sam Silva was an awful pick. We knew that could happen. We were expecting him to get hurt and recover, but those calf kicks, the range management, and then hurting the leg to the point where you drop your hands and leave yourself defensively vulnerable, he gets hit with the right hand and gets put down. So, good win for Mandel. Basically came in completely unscathed, got out of there unscathed, and that's the name of the game. So, let's get into UFC Fight Night Paris, and we'll kick it off with the first fight up in the women's division. I believe it's in the women's bantamweight division. Not women's bantamweight. Yeah, I think so. Let me check. Women's strawweight division. All right, we got Shauna Bannon taking on Sam Page Hughes. Obviously, if this is a straight kickboxing match, you know that Bannon can kind of stay on the outside, use those long, traditional martial arts style of kicks with the side kicks and the lead leg roundhouse kicks. You know, the darting cross into the rear head kick, kind of like a poor woman's version of a Wonder Boy. Wonder Woman, I guess you could say. But, yeah, I think Sam Page is better everywhere as long as she doesn't stay at range and try to fight on the outside. If she gets on the inside, I think she can take down Bannon. I think she can control from the top. I think she can beat her up. If you remember the fight against Stephanie Luciano, which I believe was Sam's last fight where she came in again as an underdog, she almost finished that fight in that second round. And then she ended up losing the third round. The first round was close. But Sam Page ended up winning as a dog. I mean, takedowns, heavy top pressure, flattened her out, almost got a rear naked choke, landed heavy ground and pound. I think she can do that to Shauna Bannon here. I think if Bannon wins, her only way to win is to catch Sam Page with a head kick, which I would give maybe like a 20% chance to. She does have submissions off of her back. We saw it after she got dropped by Pooja Tomar, and then Tomar just rushed in and got submitted. But we saw her get submitted on the regional scene before. I don't think Sam Page is going to leave her arms there to get wrapped up in an armbar and play the guard game for too long. I think Sam Page can hurt her. I think if she does hurt her and she gets on top, she's going to pass position. She's going to get to the top. She's going to get to the mountain. I think she's going to beat her up with ground and pound and soften her up for either a rear naked choke or just a ground and pound finish. I would venture to say I do think this fight goes under 2.5. You know, it's at like plus 300. Kind of crazy for a women's fight, but you know, it is women's MMA and you never know. Most of the time they do go to a decision, but I think the only way this fight goes to a decision is if Bannon is on the feet controlling the distance and range against Sam Page, and I don't really think she's going to be able to control that for 15 minutes. Maybe she controls it for the first round, but when we get into the second round, I feel like the ability to cut down the distance, get on the inside, fight in the pocket, land her dirty boxing and her boxing combinations from boxing range, which will open up the closure of the distance and the takedowns for Sam Page. I think Sam Page's boxing, forward pressure, and wrestling is going to just break down Shauna Bannon later on in this fight. And I'm going to say we get a third round ground and pound TKO from Sam Page or Sam Hughes. I'm going to say early third round, end of the second round, early third round. I think she does start to close that distance off after round one. I think Bannon wins round one, staying on the outside, using the traditional kicks to kind of counter-strike and keep her away, but it doesn't work for that long, and eventually Sam Page will get on the inside, take her down, beat her up with ground and pound, and either ground and pound TKO or submit her. I'm going to go with Sam Page Hughes to win via a late second round ground and pound TKO here. I'm going to say she finishes her off, but it could be a submission. All right, now up next in the welterweight division, you have a battle between Andreas Gustaffsson and Rinat Fakhretdinov. I'm all in on Gustaffsson here. I know a lot of people are seeing the underdog price tag on Rinat and saying he has a lot of power, he has good grappling. A lot of his wrestling and grappling can primarily take place from in close, and I just think Gustaffsson's ability to fight in the clinch is next level. It's kind of that old school style, early 90s, early 2000s MMA, where you get on the inside, and like if this was a Letway fight and you could do headbutts, I feel like Gustaffsson would probably be the world champ, because he's going to get on the inside, he's going to get his head in your chin, he's going to dig that head in, he's going to elbow you, he's going to knee you to the body, he's going to break you down in the clinch. And I think Renat is the perfect fighter to be broken down by the style of Gustaffsson. If Renat stays on the outside, maybe he could land a big left hook or a big overhand right. I think on the outside, he's going to have an advantage, because Gustafsson's basically his entire style is by walking forward, pressuring you, putting you on that back foot, closing the distance, and just beating you up in close. And he continues to keep up the cardio for 3 rounds. He doesn't really get tired, and he really controls the pace of the fight. Now, if Renat hits him with a big shot and hurts him, and then that allows him to take him down, then I think Renat could probably control the fight on the ground. But I don't really see a world where Renat holds down Andreas Gustaffsson for 3 rounds, where he holds him down enough to just dominate rounds. I think a lot of the fight is going to take place on the feet, and I think a lot of the fight is going to take place close against the cage, kind of past that black line of the octagon. And I think if that's where the majority of the fight takes place, I think Gustaffsson is just going to wear on Renat Fakhretdinov. I think he's going to start to slow him down. He's going to control the wrist. He's going to continue to land those elbows and uppercuts and shots to the body with the knees, framing off big uppercuts, elbows over the top. And we've seen Renat get hurt before. We've seen him get rocked. We saw him go back and forth with Nicholas Dalby, who is another kind of awkward style. Obviously, Gustaffsson is a different style than Dalby, but it's very awkward and you know, just very herky-jerky. I think Gustaffsson is more violent than a guy like Nicholas Dalby, and there's no question about that. If he could stay on the feet and kind of compete with a guy like Chaos Williams, who has all that power. Yes, I think Renat is better technically, but I also think Chaos Williams maybe has a little bit better cardio than Renat, and we know Renat's going to fall off in the late portions of the second and into the third round. And I think Gustaffsson is the perfect style of fighter and will impose the perfect style to really tax that gas tank and work the body, work over the top. And I see this being very similar to the Pat Pitlick fight on the Contender Series, but I do think that Renat will survive. Maybe he makes it to the bell. I could see a 3rd round TKO just exhausting him and hitting him with elbows and knees to the body and controlling and hitting him with his shoulder, landing uppercuts and elbows over the top in the clinch, and just, just dropping and kind of melting Renat Fakhretdinov against the cage. So a 3rd round TKO is definitely in the cards for this fight for Andreas Gustaffsson, but I'm going to take Gustaffsson by decision. Maybe it's not the most popular pick. He did open as a plus 150. I should have jumped on it when it opened up, but now he's like minus 120. I still think there's a lot of value on that guy, and I just think Renat is severely overrated, and I kind of always have ever since like the last few fights that he's had. I just think he's severely overrated, and we know he clearly lost to Carlos Leal. So give me Andreas Gustaffsson, 29-28 unanimous decision. But like I said, the 3rd round TKO is definitely on the table if he slows down and imposes his will on Renat. But the pick's going to be Gustaffsson, 29-28 unanimous decision. All right, next fight up is in the middleweight division. You have a battle between the UFC veteran and the tested Brad Tavares taking on Robert Bryczek. 17-6 for Bryczek, 21-11 for Brad Tavares. Aside from experience, I think this is a Bryczek fight for the most part. Yeah, he lost to Ihor Potieria. Ihor Potieria is terrible. I know he lost, but I feel like this version of Brad Tavares, I would feel more comfortable taking a shot on the plus 190 in Bryczek to win this fight when I know he has power, I know he has durability, and I know he has that knockout power, and I know Tavares is durable, but I feel like that durability is going more and more the later we get into his career. He went 15 minutes on the feet with Gerald Meerschaert when he was clearly the better striker, and I mean, in my eyes, had more power. So at this point in their careers, I'm going to take Robert Bryczek, and I'm going to take Bryczek by knockout. Do I think he's shown much in the UFC? No. Do I think he has power? Yes. And do I think that power and the forward pressure is the majority of the reason why I'm taking Bryczek? Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to give you this long, drawn-out breakdown, but I am more comfortable taking Bryczek as the underdog who has less miles, less wars, less knockouts in terms of being knocked out than a guy like Tavares who is, yes, he's fought the best of the best. Yes, UFC experience matters, but the real only win condition for Brad Tavares is to win a 15-minute decision. He's not much of a finisher. All the finishing upside, in my opinion, comes on the side of the underdog in Robert Bryczek. And if he doesn't finish him, but he hurts him in rounds that are close, then he could steal the rounds on the judges' scorecards. So when I know you can have big moments, potentially hurt a guy who's been hurt before, and you also can have that finishing ability to potentially knock out your opponent, then I'm going to take Robert Bryczek all day. Like I said, it's not going to be a long, drawn-out breakdown, but I think he's got the finishing potential. I think he has more power. He has less miles on the tank. More gas in the tank in terms of a UFC career. Yes, he lost to Potieria, so I completely understand if you're against it, because I don't think Potieria is very good. I think a lot of people were on Bryczek in that Potieria fight, and he just kind of got outclassed and schooled a little bit. Tavares, if he wins, it's a decision. Probably wins all 3 rounds if he does win a decision. But I think the big moments and I think a lot of the damage in this fight is going to come from Bryczek. And I actually think he's going to chin Brad Tavares. So give me Robert Bryczek to come in, get his first UFC win as the plus 190 underdog. I'm going to take Robert Bryczek to win round 2 TKO over Brad Tavares. All right, up next, we've got a battle in the welterweight division. You have a battle between Sam Patterson taking on Trey Waters. Waters coming off of a decision victory over Billy Ray Goff. Sam Patterson coming off of that huge upset knockout victory over Danny Borralho. I feel like that was partially a case of Borralho being overrated because of his performance against Josh Kulabau. He ended up winning another fight in the UFC. Very, very close decision, but they ended up giving it to him. I forgot who it was. And then, Sam Patterson comes in, primarily known as a grappler, but he does have knockouts, and he knocks out Danny Borralho in the first round. Trey Waters is going to be the better striker. I think he's better technically. He's longer, rangier, uses the jab, uses the 1-2, circles off with the check hook, can counter you with the right hand on the way in. But the one difference here is that he's not going to have that huge height and reach advantage that he's used to having. He's not going to have the height and reach advantage that he had over Billy Ray Goff. He's not going to have the height and reach advantage that he had in other fights in his UFC career. He's a long, tall, rangy boxer who kind of hides behind that Philly shell and picks you apart with straight shots, jabs, 1-2s down the middle, circling off, check hook. Sam Patterson is going to be able to match that length. He's going to be able to match that reach, and he's going to have the much better grappling. No, I don't think Trey Waters is easy to take down, but I think if he needs to do it, I think Patterson can, use those takedowns and get those takedowns to get on top, land some heavy ground and pound, and work to potentially set up a submission. He's got a 86% takedown defense, does Trey Waters, so he's not easy to take down. But I feel like if anybody could, it is Sam Patterson. I don't want Sam Patterson to come in here and completely rely on a pure kickboxing match to win this fight. But I also think he's a little bit more comfortable on the feet in recent fights. And I don't really think Waters has that KO power that's going to sit down a guy like Sam Patterson and knock him out. I think the fighter who probably has more power in their hands is Patterson. The better technical skill on the feet is Trey Waters. But Patterson also has the grappling where I know Waters isn't easy to take down, but if he does get him on the mat, I find it very difficult to see Trey Waters getting back up, and he's probably going to get held down, ground and pounded, and get set up in submissions to the point where even if the submissions don't work and he doesn't get a finish, he's going to win off of the damage he does and the control time he racks up on the ground. So I'm going to take Sam Patterson. I think he does enough to win this fight. This is a close fight. This is a fight that if you're betting, I wouldn't bet on either side. I wouldn't bet it to go to a decision. I wouldn't bet it to, finish inside the distance. I think this is a weird fight overall, but I'm going to take the guy who can match the length and reach of Waters, who has decent power on the feet. Yes, he's out-techniqued on the feet, but he also has better grappling, and if he can get on top, I think he would dominate from that top position. So give me Sam Patterson. I'm going to take Sam Patterson by a... I'm going to take Sam Patterson by a second round arm triangle choke submission. I'm going to say he finds a way to get on top and in that chaos and gets an arm triangle and wins via submission. Give me Sam Patterson round 2 arm triangle choke sub, but I could even see him winning a decision. But the pick's going to be the favorite and Sam Patterson to get it done. All right, up next, we've got a battle in the heavyweight division between Marcin Tybura taking on Ante Delija, making his UFC debut, formerly fighting in the PFL, has wins over the likes of what's the guy's name? Renan Ferreira? Is it Renan Ferreira? Yeah, I believe that's his name. The guy who Ngannou just absolutely destroyed and TKO'd on the mat, put his head through the mat. Yeah, so looking at this fight, guys, Tybura is going to have the UFC experience, right? We always talk about that. UFC experience, it means a lot. But I feel like their game plans for each other kind of cancel each other out. And this is a fight that I think is kind of 50-50. It's a fight I wouldn't bet on. But from a stylistic perspective, I think the fighter who's more dangerous from the top position is Ante Delija. I think the fighter who obviously has more experience and maybe is more well-rounded in terms of the striking on the feet is Marcin Tybura. It really comes down to who gets takedowns, who gets on top, and who can work their way back up to the feet. Because, you know, in a fight that's primarily two grapplers, usually the grappling cancels out and it turns into a striking matchup. I think that Ante Delija might be coming into the UFC a little bit too late in his career, but I also think, I mean, he's 4-1 in his last 5. Tybura is 3-2. But I know Tybura has nasty ground and pound. I know that Ante Delija also has nasty ground and pound, especially from that top position. He can push you against the cage, get that Dagestani handcuff, control the wrist, and just beat you up with heavy hammer fists, elbows, look to set up submissions. I think we have a fight where it's kind of two similar styles of fighter, but I'm actually going to take Marcin Tybura to win this fight. I want Delija to win. I've never been the biggest fan of Marcin Tybura, but I think Tybura just has better striking, and I think this primarily plays out as a striking matchup because I think they both can kind of cancel out the grappling. When you have two heavy grapplers, it usually turns into a striking match, and I just feel like Tybura probably has more variety, better footwork, and better ability to kind of dance around on the outside and outstrike the opponent. And I don't know really what Delia's cardio is going to look like going into the later rounds, even though it's only a 3-round fight. But I'm going to take Marcin Tybura to win. And a lot of the times when these guys are coming in from Bellator, when they're coming in from PFL, they really haven't had a lot of success. I mean, just look at the last few that have come into the UFC, Cage Warriors and all that. You know, some of them have success, but not all of them do, and it's usually more on the negative side than the positive side. That can't play a factor too heavy in every one of your breakdowns for a newcomer to the UFC. But I think if Delija gets on top and controls from the half guard from the mount, I think he can ground and pound Tybura and finish him off. But I think maybe the grappling will cancel out and Marcin Tybura might win this one just in a sloppy kickboxing match, and he takes it on the scorecard. So I'm going to take Marcin Tybura 29-28 split decision. I think he does get taken down at a certain point. I think he gets beat up a little bit, but he gets back to the feet. And I think he just kind of outpaces Ante Delija over 15 minutes. So give me Marcin Tybura 29-28 split decision in this fight. All right, next fight up is in the light heavyweight division. You have a battle between Umar Sy taking on Brandon Ribeiro. I'm going to be honest, guys. When I was picking Ribeiro, he wasn't getting the job done. When I was picking against Ribeiro, he was getting the job done. I haven't had the biggest success on Brandon Ribeiro, aside from the fact that he won on the Contender Series, and we did pick him to win that fight as a big underdog, and I believe we picked him to win by knockout. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure the picks are on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and check it out. But looking at this fight, man, Umar Sy laid a fucking egg in his last fight. He laid a fucking huge goose egg that smelled like shit, okay? Like, let's be honest. We all know Alonzo Menefield is a decent striker. We know that his striking has gotten better, especially under the tutelage of Pat Barry. And we know that he has big power and he can hurt you. And, you know, he can grapple as well. But that was a fight where I feel like Umar Sy got a little bit exposed. And let me tell you something. If this is a 15-minute kickboxing match, Brandon Ribeiro wins that fight. If it's a 15-minute kickboxing match, Ribeiro wins a 15-minute kickboxing match on the feet. And this kind of smells like another fight where people were so heavy on Dayar Nurgajai to beat Brandon Ribeiro. And Ribeiro not only beat him, he submitted him. And a guy who doesn't really get a lot of submissions. When we think of Ribeiro, we think of long jabs, long straight punches, turning the hip over with the right hand, left hook, right hand. And, you know, the range and distance could be an issue for Umar Sy. Keeping him at a distance, keeping him at length, using the jab, pumping the jab, following up with the cross behind it. It can all be an issue for Umar Sy. I don't think he's the best defensively on the feet. I feel like his footwork is okay, but I think it got a little bit exposed in the fight against Alonzo Menafield. But in this fight, man, I want to take the underdog. I really do. I want to take Ribeiro, but I can't trust either of these guys. I really can't, but fuck it. I'm going Ribeiro. Yeah, I just can't pick Umar Sy after that last performance. Maybe he comes in here, looks great, knocks out Brandon Ribeiro, takes him down, grapples him, submits him. Wouldn't surprise me. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Ribeiro wins this fight, and I think he wins by knockout. I think that there was the lining in the sand, the silver lining. We saw a little bit of a peek into the true level of Umar Sy against Alonzo Menafield. Yes, it was a really weird fight. Really, a lot of shit didn't happen. And I think Sy should win this fight on all cases, in all areas. Umar Sy should win. But I'm going to say the 1-2s, the long punches, the 1-2, the jab cross is going to really right the wrongs for Brandon Ribeiro here. And I think he's going to knock him out. Give me Brandon Ribeiro round 2 knockout over Umar Sy. I'm just going to take the shot. That's really all I got to say. All right, next fight up is going to take place in the featherweight division. You have a battle between William Gomis, the Jaguar, taking on Robert Ruchala, coming into the UFC, I believe from Cage Warriors. You can correct me on the promotion in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think if Gomis wins this fight, he's going to win the fight just like all the other fights. Staying on the outside, left kick to the body in southpaw, cross, 1-2, circle around, check hook, move around, jab, jab, front kick to the body, and just point fight his way to a decision and kind of walk Ruchala in to, his striking game. That's really what I see here. If Gomis wins, I don't think he knocks out Ruchala. I don't think he submits him. I think he wins a decision, and that's kind of how he wins all of his fights. He won the decision against Joe Anderson Brito, but he got taken down. He got controlled. He almost got submitted. He got ground and pounded early in that fight, and then the longer that the fight went, it was just harder for Brito to close down the distance, and the long, lanky kickboxing of William Gomis was just too much for him when he tried to close the distance. On the outside, it was just way too much. To be honest with you, I think Ruchala is a live underdog here. I definitely do. I think Robert Ruchala has decent striking to the point where if he closes the distance, he can cause some damage to William Gomis. It's going to be hard to get past that kicking range, but if he gets into boxing range, if he gets into clinch range, I think this guy has better boxing, and I also think that he has much better grappling. His takedowns, his top control, he not only goes for submissions, he goes for heavy ground and pound, big elbows, big hammer fists, beating you up from the top position until you surrender and eventually give up a submission, or he just pounds your face in with ground and pound. I think these guys' takedowns are tricky. He doesn't shoot traditional singles or doubles. He gets to the body lock and works to get to those outside and inside reaps, takes you down and controls you and beats you up and looks for a finish. I think that is the key word here. He looks for a finish. Now, could he look for a finish early, tire himself out, and then kind of just get picked apart later in the fight? Yes, because that's what Gomis' style is. He has a decent left kick to the body, he has a good jab, a good 1-2, a solid check hook, and he can catch you stepping in with 1-2s as well. Long, lanky kickboxer. You don't want to be at kicking range. Pretty simple, right? It's harder than it looks to get on the inside, but I think Ruchala has the ability to get on the inside. If he had no striking ability whatsoever, I would say that it's probably a late TKO for William Gomis, even though he's not a finisher. I just feel like if he didn't have any ability on the feet, then Ruchala would probably just get picked apart, beaten up, and finished off late due to exhaustion and the damage that would probably be inflicted on the side of Gomis. But the fact that he has decent striking, solid leg kicks, solid boxing, I feel like he carries much more power in the hands. I feel like eventually he will close that distance down. I think he gets takedowns. I think he will eventually get to the ground. I think when he gets on top, there's a huge advantage for him against William Gomis. And I'm actually going to call a submission for Robert Ruchala here as the underdog. I'm going to take Robert Ruchala to win via an arm triangle choke in the second round. I think he will get to the top, and I just think it's going to be very hard for Gomis to get up and get back to where he needs to get. Ruchala can be clipped. He can be hit. He can be hit hard. But this guy comes forward and he is aggressive with his takedowns. He is aggressive with his wrestling. And like I said, it's not traditional takedowns. It's body locks. It's inside and outside trips. It's tripping to get right to the mount, elbowing you to give up a better position, looking for subs. If he can't get the sub, he goes back to the ground and pound. And he's not afraid to strike with you. He's got, I believe, more power than William Gomis on the feet. And I think that will make Gomis a little bit hesitant in order to really execute his game plan. It'll cut off the cage from Gomis and his lateral movement and get in close, and eventually he'll get the takedowns. When he gets him to the ground, I think he beats him up and eventually subs him. So give me the underdog. Give me Robert Ruchala to win. I'm going to take Robert Ruchala to win via a second-round arm triangle choke submission here in his UFC debut. All right, next up we have a battle in the featherweight division between Patricio Pitbull, coming off of that victory over Dan Ige, taking on UFC newcomer and former regional champ in the Black Panther, Losner Keita. Losine Keita, sorry. So Losine Keita, 16-1, taking on Patricio Pitbull. I think this fight goes under 2.5, regardless. I think that Pitbull, his style will kind of suit him in this kind of fight, in a way, because Keita's just going to come forward and throw big bombs. Big left hooks, big overhand rights, big uppercuts. I mean, he gets in your face and just tries to knock you out. Now, in that area, he also leaves himself open. The one loss he had, though, was due to a foot injury. It wasn't even technically a real loss or a real TKO. I just think the power and the ferocity of Losine Keita is going to be too much for Pitbull. I do. I think Pitbull is getting older. I think he looked good against Dan Ige. I think he looked good in that fight. I picked him to win that fight. I picked him to beat Yair Rodriguez. It didn't go our way. But I think that in one way, he's going to have the opportunity to counter-strike and catch him with a check left hook, catch him with a right hand. You know, a lot of the times he's sitting back in that karate stance. They come forward, boom, big right hand, sitting back in that karate stance, big left hook on the counter. I think that Keita's going to be there for counters, but I also think that he's just going to come forward and kind of bully Patricio Pitbull. And I think if Pitbull was younger, if he wasn't as old as he was at this point in his career for this fight, I understand why people are taking him. I think he has a good advantage on the ground. But even if you look at Keita's record, he's not beating guys with trash records. He's beating guys 12-2, 20-5, 37-9, or 46-10. I mean, there's good records on here for the guys that Keita are beating. And Keita has gone to a decision. I mean, he's got 10 wins by KO, 6 decisions, no submissions. I think that the area that Pitbull could probably take over is maybe if he gets dropped, he lets Keita follow him to the ground, and maybe he snatches up that armbar like he tried to do against Yair Rodriguez. I feel like Pitbull by submission is live here. I feel like he has the better grappling, and with the forward pressure and ferocity of Keita, I think that he's going to potentially leave himself open to getting taken down and potentially getting subbed with an arm triangle or an arm bar. So I think Pitbull by submission is live here, but I'm going to say that Losine Keita comes in and knocks out Patricio Pitbull in this fight. I'm going to say he knocks him out. I know I picked him against Ige. Oh, you're picking him against Ige, not this guy. Styles make fights, and I think the power and forward pressure and just the amount of power this guy has in his hands, I think it's going to be too much for Pitbull. So I'm going to take Keita, and I'm going to take him by knockout. Give me Losine Keita round 1 knockout over Patricio Pitbull. I just think he's going to bum rush this dude. And I don't really want that to happen because I like Pitbull. I'd like to see him get another win. But this is a very tough fight for him. And a guy who has a lot of pressure, a lot of power, which Ige has a lot of power, but he doesn't have a ton of pressure. Yair has a pretty good power, but a lot of speed and a lot of lateral movement, not so much pressure. I think this guy has forward pressure. He has big power. Yes, he can get caught with a counter shot because we know that Pitbull is a good counter striker. Good counter left hook, good counter right hand. Like, they're all going to be there, but I just think Keita's going to clip him on the chin and not allow him to recover and put him down. Give me Losine Keita to make a phenomenal UFC debut and get a round 1 TKO over Patricio Pitbull. I'm going Losine Keita, round 1 knockout. All right, up next is an interesting fight in the lightweight division. You have a battle between Balaji Oki taking on Mason Jones. Originally, I'm going to be honest with you. Originally, I had Mason Jones in a bet, and I thought, like, minus 130 was a gift. I think anything under minus 200, like, oh, he should win this fight. He should be able to out-grapple Balaji Oki. He should be able to take him down. He should be able to outwork him. He should be able to, pressure him and get him on that back foot. The more I think about this fight, the harder I think it is to predict than that. Borralho is a clean striker, and, Mason Jones was getting hit hard by Jeremy Stephens in his return to the UFC. But I also think people put a little bit too much stock into that. Mason Jones gets hit a lot. Don't get me wrong. He lost to Ludovic Klein. Klein's a monster, but he did just lose to Mateusz Gamrot. But Gamrot's one of the best grapplers in the division. He actually lost that fight as a big favorite against Ludovic Klein. He lost to Mike Davis. That was a back-and-forth banger, one of the best fights I've ever seen. Go back and watch that fight if you haven't watched Mason Jones versus Mike Davis. But in this fight, Borralho's a clean striker. He's sharp. Good jab, good 1-2, solid low stance to try to avoid the takedowns, good calf kicks, good counter striking. He's going to hit Mason Jones. Jones is known for being a durable guy. Jones is known for being super durable and kind of walking through shots and finding a way to win. That durability works for a long time until eventually it doesn't. And I feel like Borralho could be the guy to potentially sit down Mason Jones and maybe finish him off. He's got no losses by KO, does Borralho. Oki's been submitted once, lost one decision. He got submitted by Chris Duncan. Now, if you go back and you watch that fight, Chris Duncan was getting pieced up by Oki. Oki was beating the shit out of him on the feet. And then he shot a bad takedown. He locked up that signature guillotine that we also saw him catch my boy, Jordan Vucenic in. Oh, I can't wait for him to get back to the UFC. Vucenic, we need you back. But either way, he caught him in that guillotine, boom, locked it up, and he passed out. But Oki was kind of beating the brakes off him. He fights a guy on the Contender Series in Dylan Salvador. I believe it was Dylan was his first name. Multiple-time kickboxing world champ, very, very credentialed in the striking arts, and Oki just kind of walked him down, beat him up, ripped to the body. He's got good combinations with his hands, solid kicks, good 1-2s. The straight punches are very nice. He rips good body shots. I think that this fight is going to be a war. I think they're going to go back and forth. I think the cleaner striker is Oki. I think the better overall fighter in terms of skill level is probably Oki, but I feel like the grappling of Mason Jones is really going to pay dividends in this fight against Oki. He's really good. He's got an 86% takedown defense, but I just feel like he might be able to draw out a firefight and draw out a brawl from Oki and push him back and pressure him, and that's going to open up the takedowns. That's going to open up the wrestling. That's going to open up the cage pushing, the strikes off the break with the elbows, the uppercuts, the takedowns. And I just feel like Mason Jones' style is going to wear on Borralho in the second and in the third round. I think he's going to get beat up early. I think maybe he gets dropped, but I feel like at a pretty high clip, Oki wins round one. I think the longer that the fight goes, it does start to play into the game or into the hand of Mason Jones. The forward pressure, the dirty boxing, the breaking off the clinch with the striking to the clinch game, the takedowns to the striking to the takedowns. Whoever has the better transitions between the two, I think really is going to make the difference in who wins this fight. And I just feel like Jones is taking more damage, but he's also more willing to get into those brawls, more willing to get into those fights that are up close, personal, and dirty, and I don't think Oki wins that kind of fight. He's got good boxing, he's got good dirty boxing, but I just feel like the mixture of the takedowns to the striking and the striking to the grappling, I feel like that's what's going to win Mason Jones this fight. I think it goes the distance. I could see a third-round submission or potentially a third-round TKO for Jones. I could also see an early knockout for Oki. I think he's live to clip him early because Jones has been hurt multiple times. He hasn't been knocked out, but he's capable of being knocked out. But I'm just going to say that forward pressure, those takedowns, the transitions from the striking to the grappling and etc., like we talked about, I think it's going to wear on Oki, and I think he's going to eventually get those takedowns. I think he's going to beat him up with ground and pound, and I'm going to say Mason Jones wins this fight by decision. I'm going to go a 29-28 split decision for Mason Jones over Borralho. I just think he's going to wear on him, and I think he has the style to kind of draw out a fight that Oki doesn't want. But it wouldn't surprise me if Oki won, and it really wouldn't surprise me if Oki was the first guy to knock Mason Jones out. But give me Mason Jones 29-28 split decision. I think he just draws out a fight, makes it dirty, makes it nasty, and pushes a higher pace down the stretch. Mason Jones 29-28 split decision. All right, next fight up is in the light heavyweight division. You have a battle between Paul Bear Jew Craig taking on Modestas Bukauskas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this fight. Do I think you should be betting on Bukauskas as a minus 300 favorite? No. But do I think you should ever really be betting on Paul Craig against a guy who's not going to look to grapple? No. So I'm taking Bukauskas. Like, I'm not going to sit here and talk about this. Craig's striking is okay. He has decent wheel kicks, decent head kicks, solid kicks to the body. I would say he has better kicks than Modestas Bukauskas, but I just feel like the power and the speed and the boxing is going to be too much for Craig. I think Bukauskas is going to clip him, hurt him early. He's probably going to fall down, try to draw Modestas into the grappling. I think Bukauskas is going to call him back up to the feet. I think he's going to hit him with that 1-2 again, hurt him. He's going to drop him, or he's going to fall down. Craig's going to say, come on, get in. He's going to go for some clinch takedowns. He's not going to get him. Bukauskas is going to break off. I think he's going to get him against the cage. 1-2, hurt him, rip the body, rip up top, boom, hit him with a right hand, and knock him out. I'm going to go with Modestas Bukauskas to win. Give me Modestas Bukauskas round 2 knockout. I can even see it in the first round. I really hope Modestas isn't stupid enough to go to the ground and grapple with Paul Craig, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was, but I got to take Modestas here. Every fight starts on the feet. He's the better striker. Craig could land, like I said, a weird wheel kick or a spinning elbow, something crazy that could hurt him and put him down. But I just don't think that's going to happen. So give me Modestas Bukauskas round 1 knockout over Paul Craig. It could be round 2. If you're going to play it, I would just say Modestas KO 1-2 because I think that's how it happens. I think he hurts him, drops him against the cage, and the ref stops it. Kind of like the Cerquera fight. A similar style of knockout to that one. Just I don't think as early. So give me Modestas Bukauskas round 1 KO over Paul Craig. I just don't think he's going to be dumb enough to go to the ground with Craig here. All right, now we're at the co-main event of the evening in the lightweight division. You have a battle between Benoit Saint Denis coming in and taking on the Fighting Nerds Mauricio Ruffy. Yeah, you know, I see a lot of people on Benoit Saint Denis this week, and I'm a little bit surprised because in my mind, I think Ruffy should be like a minus 400 favorite. I really do. Obviously, the grappling is heavier on the side of Saint Denis. He's going to be the better grappler. He's going to be the better, I would say, body kicker, not overall better kicker. Just ask Bobby Green about that. You know, fighting in Paris, fighting in his hometown, right, in France. Like, Benoit Saint Denis, I think, is going to come out here looking for a fight. The smartest thing to do would be to shoot takedowns early, shoot takedowns often, get those takedowns, and just try to wear out Mauricio Ruffy and finish him late. I just don't think that's going to happen. Ruffy is very, very prime Conor McGregor-esque with his striking. Check left hook, look away left hook like he hit Jan Top with, 1-2 down the middle, spinning wheel kicks, front kicks to the body. This guy's got everything when it comes to the striking. And everybody's going to sit here and say, we don't know about his grappling. We don't know about his grappling. We don't know about his grappling. We don't, but he's got 100% takedown defense. Has he fought a grappler and fought a grappler at the level of Saint Denis? No. But Saint Denis is so fucking slow on the feet. He's got a lot of power, but he is so fucking slow. The speed advantage in this fight for Ruffy, it's like an Olympic-level sprinter taking on a high school track runner when it comes to speed, okay? It's not going to be close. And yes, I think Saint Denis can make this nasty, make it dirty, push him against the fence. His only chance is to make this dirty, get in close, and take him down. I think if he gets on top of Mauricio Ruffy, Ruffy's in a lot of trouble. But what's the one thing we know about these fighting nerds? They're so calm under pressure, so calm in bad positions, and they find a way to work their way up. I think Mauricio Ruffy's going to get a highlight knockout here in France. I think we're going to see Benoit Saint Denis face down, ass up on the canvas. Did you guys watch the Contender Series the other night? With the main event, Jean-Paul Labosnioni, with that switch kick to the head and that right hand? Well, did you see how he fell down and looked like he was dead? That's how I think Benoit Saint Denis is going to be knocked out here. I don't think it's going to be like the same combination, but I think it's going to be a boom, bam, and then he's knocked out cold. I think it could be round 1. I'm going to say St. Denis survives to the second round somehow and just gets the absolute shit beat out of him. Comes in, gets caught with a right hand, and just gets sat down, and the ref calls it off. He's going to take a lot of damage. If he doesn't get it to the ground, he's not winning. And I'm giving him a chance because every time I say, oh, they have no chance, they find a way to win. I'm giving him a chance if he wrestles. He's got a chance if he grapples, if he gets on top. Ruffy's in a lot of trouble if he gets into that top position. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think Ruffy's going to jab, 1-2, slip, pull counter right hand, jab, front kick to the body, and I think he's just going to land that right hand on the chin of Benoit St. Denis and sit him down. Pull counter right hand, boom! Drop him, and the ref calls it off. Give me Mauricio Ruffy, round 1 knockout over Benoit St. Denis in Paris. I think he makes a statement, and I think he sends Benoit St. Denis out cold. All right, now we're at the main event of the evening in the middleweight division between Nassourdine Imavov, fighting in his hometown, taking on Caio Borralho. Guys, I don't know who's going to win this one. I'm just going to tell you straight up. This is a close fight. This is a competitive fight. This is a fight that I think on either side, it probably, if there's a finish, I think it's in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. I don't think we get anything early. I'm going to say if there's a finish, it's the 3rd or 4th round. If we make it to the 5th, I think it probably goes to a decision. Yeah, you look at the stats for this one, 6'3" for Imavov, 6'1" for Borralho. Equal reach, equal leg reach. You look at significant strikes, 4.45 landed for Imavov, 3.61 landed for Borralho. 55% accuracy for Imavov, 60% accuracy for Borralho. Borralho takes less strikes per minute, but it's 58% defense on the side of Imavov to 62% defense on the side of Borralho. You look at the grappling, averages about 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. Imavov doesn't really get a lot of takedowns. He mainly uses his wrestling and grappling for defensive reasons. 60% takedown accuracy for Borralho. 78% takedown defense for Imavov, 76% takedown defense for Borralho, and submission average 1.14 for Imavov, 0.52 for Borralho, but I feel like Borralho hunts for submissions more than Imavov. This is a close fight. This is, I think, a coin flip. If you ever want to say a coin flip in modern MMA, I think this is it. I think the better striker from a technical level is Imavov. We're not going to sit here and say anything different because that is the truth. He's got a good jab. He's got good ability to switch stances. His right hand is money. Just ask Israel Adesanya what he thinks about the right hand. The way he set that knockout up was beautiful. That was a knockout we called on the podcast. We picked Imavov by KO in that fight. Imavov lands a switch kick, Izzy lands a switch kick to the body or a left kick in southpaw. As he steps to orthodox, he uses that lead hand to trap the identical lead hand of Adesanya, pull it down and direct him into a missile of a right hand. Caught the southpaw kick, boom, dragged it around right as he switches stance. Left hook, boom, right hand. Knocked him out cold. Followed up with 1 or 2 shots, but it was a clean KO for Nassourdine Imavov. I think Borralho is going to be the more composed fighter. I think Borralho is going to have the better cardio in the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th, okay? I really think that he's going to have the better cardio, and I think what this fight comes down to is game planning and cardio, and I really think cardio plays a big factor in who wins this fight. I think Imavov is going to hurt Borralho at a certain point. I think he's going to land that right hand, or he's going to land a big left hook, and he's going to stun Borralho. I think he's going to go for a finish. I think Borralho's going to tie him up with the grappling and be able to survive. I think when Imavov goes for that finish, he's going to slow down, and I think that later on in the fight, in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I think Borralho's forward pressure is going to start to get to Imavov, okay? I know that he was able to finish Cannonier late in the 4th round. We thought Cannonier was taking over. We thought Cannonier was heavily ahead. We never really thought Cannonier was ahead too much in the fight with Jared Cannonier, and people are going to say, look at Imavov's face after Cannonier. Look at Borralho's face against Cannonier. Yeah, Borralho had a cut, but let's be honest, the fight with Imavov and Cannonier was much closer before the TKO compared to the fight with Borralho and Cannonier. I think we knew that Borralho was ahead in that fight, and then he dropped him at the end of the 5th round, and that could have been a TKO more than I thought the Imavov stoppage was a TKO, but I don't think it was a bad stoppage necessarily. I think he was going out of there one way or another. There was still a lot of time left in the round. I think Imavov, like I said, he's the cleaner striker. He's got the cleaner boxing. If this fight stays in boxing range, I think Imavov wins. And I think Imavov hurts Borralho, and I think he could knock him out. I think Imavov is the much cleaner boxer, much sharper, much cleaner. I think the better wrestler is Borralho. I think the better grappler overall is Borralho. I think the fighter who has better cardio, especially moving into the championship rounds, is going to be Caio Borralho. I think that we saw Nasruddin Imavov get taken down, mounted, and controlled for a full round in the first round against Brendan Allen. Now, Brendan Allen is a good grappler, and I think he might be a little bit better of a wrestler than Borralho, but I think Borralho is much higher level with the grappling. And I'll say this, I think Borralho's grappling is what's going to aid in him having the cardio advantage later on in the fight. I think the takedowns will come easier in that third, fourth, and fifth round if it gets that far. I think the first 2.5 rounds are going to be very competitive. I think we might even see a case where Imavov is up 2-0, but Borralho's losing the rounds, but he's still right there. He's still in his face. He's going for takedowns, but he's stopping them. But we see that the gas tank is starting to deplete faster on Imavov's side because of the power he's putting into these punches. I think he hurts Borralho at a certain point, but Borralho's going to recover, tie him up in the over-unders, push him against the fence, tie him up in the clinch, and be able to recover and get back to where he needs to be. After they break off on the clinch, I think Imavov's going to start to come forward, but we're going to see that forward pressure of Borralho start to really work a little bit better than it was earlier. And when we get into that third, fourth, and fifth, I think the forward pressure and the threat of the takedowns is going to open up the striking of Borralho. Jab, 1-2 down the middle, lead uppercut, backhand, right? And he's going to start to see the combinations of Imavov a little bit better. Cover, counter, start to get those takedowns. And I think in the fourth and fifth round, we're going to see Caio Borralho wrestle more, get takedowns, and win the fourth and fifth just based off takedowns and control time. I think he's going to get one of the early rounds as well. I think Imavov's going to win 2 rounds, and I think this fight is going to go to the scorecards with Borralho being the one who takes over late and uses his grappling to secure the decision. So give me Caio Borralho, give me the natural to win 48-47 unanimous decision over Nasruddin Imavov. It's going to be a close fight, but it's going to be a unanimous decision, and I think Borralho uses his wrestling in the championship rounds, gets the takedowns, and tires out Imavov, winning the fourth and the fifth clearly and taking one of the early rounds while Imavov takes 2 of them. So the pick is going to be Caio Borralho, 48-47 unanimous decision over Nasruddin Imavov. All right, that's it for my UFC Paris preview, predictions, and breakdown. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and land a Japanese teep to the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Have a good night, everybody, all right?